Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new episode of Skylanders Imaginators Versus here on the channel. As always, the timer is starting from the moment the Skylander is placed onto the portal, but here we're actually starting at the academy because in the previous episode where the villains continued to increase their lead on the speedrun timer purely based on the Sensei's failure at the creation clash match, but regardless of all of that, it left off the last episode with the characters on the respective teams needing to acquire pieces for Jetvax's device in Shelmont Shores, which is why we're starting things off in the academy here. Plus, last episode ended so close to the academy, I figured it would be easier on the timing to start at the academy, and then that cuts out stuff like the loading screens and traversing for MAP. It's just more convenient of a watch that way. Now with Tidepool and Graveclobber kicking things off here, the Senseis are immediately going to catch up some time because Graveclobber is that much more slower than Tidepool. Not only on his summoning in animation, which lost him a couple of seconds, but also just in his slow walking speed altogether. Now we've actually started with water characters because Shelmont Shores, the very first elemental area, is that of the water element, so it only makes sense because that means that when we get into Shelmont Shores initially, there's going to be no need for switch outs. And man, Graveclobber is messing up the platforming right now. His slow speed isn't the only thing losing time in this here library section, but luckily both these characters know the utmost efficient manner in which to approach this section. Obviously they want to keep the bookshelves at diagonals, and now Tidepool is messing up with the platforming even. But you keep things at diagonals there, and it means that you get to push the bookshelves less along the way, and that takes away more animations of the characters actually pushing them. And same with the bookshelves there, you don't actually need to worry about the closest most bookshelf because you can just jump along to the furthest most one, and you need the furthest most one rather than the closest most one because you need to jump from the second bookcase to the elevated kind of platform thingy above hand. Obviously you can't do that with the closest most bookshelf. So now, obviously, Tidepool is midway through the claw game, whereas Graveclobber is only just beginning it. So already we're seeing the deficit that the villains are facing. But Graveclobber seems to be quite efficient in taking things out and dealing with this section. It's the Senseis that played through this level first, as it was their turn to do so, and the villains, meaning that they get to take advantage going through it the second time with a little bit more of a fresher sense of mind, rather than the Senseis who went into it a little less prepared, though that's not really shown so far because Tidepool is absolutely obliterating it, besides for the platform mistakes she made earlier. But it seems as though both of these Senseis made the same mistake by missing one of those Imaginite chunks earlier, but they went back, collected it just fine. The last thing they want to do is be at an Imaginite chest deficit, especially if one of them afterwards, at the end of this episode, I should go as far to say, there will be a shift up in who has the advantage for the speedrun timer. So the villains, in any case, want to keep that Imaginite chest advantage, and they can't be losing snail parts. And luckily, since they were both successful in the snail challenge, they both get the Imaginite chest, and they both get that second chest as well. Graveclobber is just opening it now, whereas Tidepool is grabbing the key, and she's just about ready with Jetvax's device over here. She is several seconds ahead of Graveclobber right now, and it doesn't help when Graveclobber doesn't seem to want to push the bookshelf into place. These animations have really annoying hitboxes sometimes for the push blocks. In fact, it brings the whole pacing of the game to a crawl. It does so in every Skylanders game, unfortunately, so I have no idea why they kept the push block mechanic, especially now that a lot of these sections can't be played the way they're designed because of the jumper mechanic. So I would personally have chosen a different manner in which to approach puzzle design if I were developing these games. But then again, I'm not a game developer, so what do I know? Now, Jetvax seems to be speaking on both of these perspectives, which is rather unfortunate. Graveclobber gets to the exit far quicker than Tidepool because when I was playing with the Senseis, I had a slight second where I forgot that I needed to head out of the academy as fast as possible. Graveclobber didn't make that mistake, and so he has gained a couple of frames at best, but as they say, every frame counts, given how close this competition has been so far, to my surprise when it comes to the speedrun timer, mind you. Literally, it's going to come down to the final frame, no doubt, and that's actually one thing to address. The timers are actually, they're going through obviously at the same speed, so a second is a second regardless, but you'll notice that the Sensei timer strikes the next second just before the villain one does, and that's purely because of the nanoseconds. Obviously, the nanoseconds aren't displayed on this timer, but it just means that the seconds change ever so slightly on both of the timers, even though the timers are going through at the exact same speed. And that's purely because when I freeze the timers at the end of the episode, obviously the nanoseconds are going to be different for each timer every time. So because of the difference in nanoseconds, for timers change times at slightly different times. Not that that really matters, because again, the timers will move at the same speed regardless. Graveclubber managing to get caught between the two platforms there. Quite a hilarious glitch that. But after eventually falling, he wound up spawning back at one of the little spinning platforms. So I suppose in the end, that kind of nullified the damage of him taking forever to fall. It's like Loki all over again, where he has been falling for 30 minutes. That being said, Graveclubber is now putting these fools to death, but Tidepool even has already gone through and destroyed everything in sight. It's been ink on ink for Tidepool as she fights those ink creatures with ink of her own. Quick Shot definitely suits her playstyle, to say the least. And what's great so far is that already we've acquired 2 treasure chests for the collectibles. Unlike Scholarville, the collectibles are going to be acquired throughout this level, because it means that these teams can each earn themselves an extra Imaginite chest for the star completions of the level. Now, Legendary Tri-Tip has been initiated with Sensei, given that the light element is stronger here. So finally, the villains can start mounting a little bit of a comeback with the might of Blastatron, who is much quicker than that of Legendary Tri-Tip. But they do need to get out of here with the Soldierman intact, otherwise they'll miss that collectibles objective, not what they want to do. So Tri-Tip is already heading back, but he's got to be wary of the tornado, because jumping into that tornado too soon is going to be a time waste. Whereas if they jump into it after they've collected the soul gem, they can save time by getting back to the start much quicker. Obviously, they don't want to be previewing Mr. Cat, and Tri-Tip used the exact strategy I was alluding to earlier. Now Blastatron is speeding through. So, but surely he didn't do the puzzle as efficiently as Tri-Tip, so despite having a quicker movement speed, he's about as far behind as he was beforehand. But he's going to make some time here at the Night Shrine, where obviously the Senseis have to switch out for Ambush, but Blastatron is going to be able to get straight into it, given that he himself is a Knight. It's rather convenient how the elements and the battle classes have landed for the villains this time around, a bit like the last 3 times in a row, it feels like. So now Blastatron is acquiring his Sky Chi, and obviously since both of these Knights access their shrines, they both get chests added to the vault for the Imaginite chest collections. Now there goes Ambush with a much cooler grinding animation, if you were to ask me. But the question is, are either of these teams going to complete the grind challenge? Because if one gets it and the other doesn't, that's going to be a huge advantage to the victor for the sake of the Imaginite chest collected. And Blastatron seems to have collected one of the harder Imaginite chunks to grab, the 4th one there. He's already at 6, which means that he has outdone Ambush. Ambush has already missed an Imaginite chunk, so he cannot be successful with his grind section. But Blastatron can still screw up at the end here. Let's find out shortly if he will or will not. It's really as simple as that. It's either 50-50. He either will or will not. There is no try in between. It's Yoda all over again. This is the episode of quotes, apparently. But Blastatron was successful. I repeat, Blastatron was successful. So now that means the villains are going to have a 2 Imaginite chest advantage, because they've garnered the extra Imaginite chest from the grind challenge. Now, obviously, it's time for the Earth element to pop up. So Barbella is representing the Senseis as she obliterates everything in sight. And by everything, I mean everything. Things that you didn't even think could get obliterated, Barbella just summons in and starts obliterating them. So there goes Golden Queen as well. Again, very underleveled, but she has all her upgrades still, so she is the beast that Golden Queen is known to be, as always. Now, Golden Queen has 2 turrets, which means that she has stuff dealing damage in her behalf already, whereas Barbella continues to melee attack everything. Projectile attacks are a huge advantage, because obviously you don't need to move toward a enemy to actually defeat them here. Golden Queen for some reason is going back towards the cave section without the explosive. You think the villains would have the hindsight of doing that, given that they went second this time around, but apparently not. Barbella has been a lot more efficient with her routing, because she unlocked the Imaginite chest already, blew up the wall, and now both of them are acquiring the Swashbuckler Imaginator Soul Gem, but Barbella has the Imaginite chest in tow already. Golden Queen is yet to have opened it, so she's lost a lot of time there, though she did level up. That was rather convenient of her indeed. I was probably talking about something, you know, about this episode being the quote of episodes, I suppose, but clearly what I was talking about isn't nearly as important as commentating this right now, which is exactly what I'm doing. Yay me. Now, Barbella is obviously heading towards the switch to lower the platform there, where they can switch out for the bow slingers. Now, when I was playing through this the first time, I accidentally didn't realise that the element of the area remained Earth here for a very, very long time. So since I remained as the bow slinger for one team, I decided to remain as the same bow slinger for the other. It would only be fair, you know, minimalise the switching animations for either team, which is why Bookshot is finally going to get his debut, and Wolfgang is going to be able to absolutely tear up this bowslinger section with his dash ability. So once again, the villains are going to be able to gain some time along the way. So there's Bookshot with his debut. The Magic villain hasn't even made his debut yet, because Magic appears so rarely in this game for some reason. I have no idea what this game had going against Magic, but here we are with Bookshot having looked at Skychi and garnering yet another Imaginite chest. The Senseis need every Imaginite chest they can get as well, now that they are at the deficit when compared to the villains. Man, Bookshot really did not want to stand on that switch right there, but Wolfgang has been summoned in, he's dashing through, and already he's completed the Skychi. He's being far more efficient in terms of exploring everything here, because already he's made his way to the Creation Clash, whereas Bookshot fell off so many times that Wolfgang managed to catch him up, and they are both playing Creation Clash at the same time. I called it Sky Zones earlier by mistake. That's what happens when you try and speak at 50 miles per hour. So here we go, now that these players are effectively neck and neck, that has made this part of the challenge that much more exciting. The villains off to not the greatest strategy here. The Senseis, on the other hand, they have some great defense with Chopscotch in the bottom left-hand corner, but Flarewolf is going to take Graveclaw on the villain side, and for some reason, the villain's going to make a terrible decision to put Crankcase down there. The 4 blades can't be used to take anything now, and it's going to lock them out entirely from having the potential to capture Starcaster at a later date. In fact, that piss-poor strategy just lost them the game! Kind of makes up for the fact that the Sensei's lost the game in the previous episode, you know, all that goes around, comes around and all that. So hopefully the villains can have a better shot the second time around, whereas Bookshot makes up for all of his terrible platforming skills with some actual Creation Clash skills. And you can't forget to traverse all the way to the far left here for the sake of the legendary selfie frame. You want that again for the collectible level star at the end of the level, that is. Now, Crankcase is being used to actually take a stone this time for the villain side, so it seems as though now with Wolfgang taking Flarewolf, the villains have effectively solidified their victory with a 5-4 lead. My apologies for sniffles, or it would appear my cold from the previous episode is carrying over. But now Bookshot has finally made his way to the live section, whereas Wolfgang still needs to make his way around these spinning plates and grab the legendary selfie frame, and he doesn't even want to step on the button along the way. This is Bookshot all over again. Why are these hitboxes so janked? They're the pushing hitboxes all over again. Luckily though, Wolfgang is absolutely speeding through, and he's got that legendary selfie frame very, very quickly. Once again, he is making up for his lack of creation skills with his platforming and speed-based skills. He's basically the opposite skill palette compared to Bookshot over here. Now, Ambush, the problem with his moveset is that it's about being patient. You can't be patient in a speedrun, so Ambush is being patient. He's powering up his sword, but that means that when Choppy Mage is switched out for, he's likely going to gain some time on the Senseis just for the fact that he can defeat enemies a lot more quickly than Ambush. Ambush is arguably more powerful, but the way how Choppy Mage stacks up damage and how quickly he does it is just so efficient for defeating things quickly and also not getting hit himself. So, in other words, the chances of losing Chompy Mage here, they are very slim. You can say the same for Ambush. Both of these characters are very good, which is why it's so interesting to see them pitted together. I think the only unfair matchup between villains and Sensei here would be Chompy Mage against Cash Banuka, because we all know how terrible Crash Bandicoot is in this game. For some reason, the developers woke up and decided to bully that poor Bandicoot with his terrible moveset. Now here we go, we have more ink creatures to deal with. I suppose it would have been a lot more quicker if they decided to fight ink with ink again, but unfortunately this is a life zone, not a water zone, so Tide Pool is locked out for the moment being. Now, Ambush has already defeated this next section, he has gotten the Imaginite chest, and he's heading for Dr. Crankcase's soul gem. So, luckily, by saying Crankcase, I said the right name. I almost said Krankenstein then. But that being said, Ambush needs to hit all the switches, and he seems to be a much better switch hitter than his bookshot compadre. Now, Chompy Mage has finally made it to the big bad of the level, I suppose you could go as far to say, the big enemy that gets the cutscene introduction. How special! Unlocks the Imaginite chest and makes his way, well, he will be doing so once this set decides to complete itself. But now he's made his way into that same section where Ambush is already sneaking through, not getting hit by the lightning because he's too fast for that lightning crap. And now Air is stronger here, where Ambush is going to absolutely annihilate everything in sight because he's not only a powerful brawler, he's a speedy brawler. The perfect combination for this sort of challenge. So whilst Chompy Mage slowly but surely makes his way across all 4 of these buttons, and then he's going to slowly but surely make his way up that corridor, whilst he's busy faffing about with that, Airstrike is on the egg rescue game already. Now that is some speed right there if I ever have seen it. He's collected 1 egg. And now he's going to collect the other egg before he continues to shoot everything else in sight. You've got to prioritise the eggs, because the last thing you want to do in this challenge is have the eggs destroyed by the miniaturized rats, and then that cost you a lot of time. Luckily, Chompy Mage is getting through the lightning section without being struck. It doesn't really matter if you're struck in this section though, like Chompy Mage just did. He took the damage, and the slight knockback still made things quicker. But him taking that damage didn't even matter because Air is stronger here now, so Bad Juju is left to clutch out the rest of the level. And with her renewed health bar, that's why it wouldn't have mattered if Chompy Mage took damage. So long as he wasn't defeated, none of it would have mattered because he doesn't get to play in this level again. Bad Juju, on the other hand, she has to clutch out for the rest of the level because the air section is stronger here, which means that she has to defeat the Battle Gong and defeat the Swashbuckler at the very end of the level. Now, we did this in the Nightmare run I did for this game, where I did the Nightmare Villain Challenge, trying to beat the game on Nightmare mode with just the 12 villains. That included Chaos and Dr. Neo Cortex. I almost said Donctor then, I don't know what a Donctor is exactly. But Bad Juju was able to solo it on Nightmare mode, so I'm hoping here that she can manage the same on hard difficulty. But you've got to be careful with that Swashbuckler Doomlander, given that its hitboxes can be rather jank at times. It's your typical Imaginators. And speaking of typical Imaginators, Airstrike was very successful at that grind section. He was able to get the chest where Ambush was not in the previous portion of the level, mind you. So Ambush already, or Airstrike already, really proven himself as an MVP for the Senseis thus far. But obviously those awards that I'm alluding to already, those we will worry about in the 6th episode of the series. For now, Bad Juju is also grinding things out, so we gotta hope that she's able to collect all of the Imaginite along the way, so that then she can continue to have the Imaginite chest's advantage over the Senseis. Now, Bad Juju also needs to take as little damage as possible, because during the Doomlander fight, there is no healing, at least for her, so she needs to go into the Doomlander with as much health as possible, whereas the Senseis, yes, they get to switch out for Chain Reaction, which does waste time in terms of the switch animation. However, that means the health bar is reset, so Chain Reaction is going to have that one advantage going for him, though Chain Reaction is not nearly as good as Bad Juju when it comes to dealing damage quickly. Chain Reaction, just like Ambush, is a very patient type character. You stack damage over time rather than dealing huge chunks very quickly all at once. In the first place, I suppose you could go as far to say. Bad Juju is now collecting some Snail Imaginite, whilst Airstrike has already dealt with the Battle Gong, mind you, taking very little damage along the way. His health bar is looking rather stacked right now. Bad Juju wants to try to get through the Battle Gong with as much success as Ambush did, mind you. Not even Ambush, it's Airstrike. These A's, the fact that Airstrike and Ambush both begin in A, is turning my brain to absolute mashed potatoes right now. But luckily, Bad Juju has a really good winning strategy where she can launch out her Juju Jr., and then whilst that's trapped near the big guy there, she can use the lightning towards this position, while she defeats enemies at a completely different region of the map, mind you, and then she can, obviously, while she's swashbuckling them, Bad Juju Jr., which is a bit of a mouthful to say, might I say, Yeah, you can see it there. The positioning of Juju Jr. is perfect because it's dealing damage to enemies, whilst Bad Juju continues to traverse the rest of the stage. It's really efficient for getting damage dealt to those enemies very quickly, no matter your positioning on the stage. Very important for getting things done quickly there. But Bad Juju not as quick on the Battle Gong, and she took a lot more damage to the Battle Gong as well. Not what we wanted from that, because we wanted a success similar to that of Airstrike. And speaking of Airstrike's success, or more specifically the lack thereof, he seems to be falling off this twirling thing a lot, purely because this spiral, it really has it out for Airstrike today for some reason. Like, apparently Airstrike looked at this spiral funny, and now the spiral just really wants to screw over Airstrike and give him a bad day. Man, Airstrike really does not deserve this. Finally, he makes it to the end. I have no idea why we're struggling to get over those platforms, especially given how good his platforming has been as of late. Every single time I made for jumping that playthrough, it just seemed as though Airstrike wasn't getting the distance he needed for some reason. Or just chalked it up to poor RNG. It definitely has nothing to do with my poor platforming skills whilst playing through this game. Now, Bad Juju is she is obliterating the enemies. My apologies for that stutter right there. It would appear that saying the word obliterating enemies costs a lot of my processing power, my speak power, if you will, or my power of speech, because that makes more grammatical sense. There you go. But it's all of these A's that get my tongues tied. There's too many words, too many big words beginning with A specifically this episode to worry about. But Bad Juju going into the final fight with only 300 health. This is one of those times where Bad Juju being on the brink of level 19 would have been so useful because of that big experience orb that you garner before the start of the fight. Now, Chain Reaction has already took a ton of damage. He continues to take damage, and that's not good. You want to take less damage than that, the Chain Reaction. Luckily, though, he can position his fans exactly where the swashbuckler attacks finish on behalf of the Doomlander. And as soon as the Doomlander finishes their attacks, he's taking advantage and going in for the triple melee hit. Now, Bad Juju, luckily, her hitboxes are about as jank as the swashbuckler Doomlanders, so it's time for the villain to take a revenge on the enemies for that. Never mind, I guess not. The Doomlander's attack had finished already. The animation had finished already. Yet the damage was still dealt to Bad Juju. That is what we call a load of bullshit. But moving on from the swears, as always, these are not family-friendly videos. I'm going to cough now. That's better. Now that I've coughed, I can continue to commentate. Man, this is what happens when you just go crazy without a script. But I am reacting to this in real time. Obviously, I played these games already. I did the playthrough already. But having to commentate two of these simultaneously, I'm watching for playback of them simultaneously here for the first time after having initially done both of the playthroughs. It is quite the experience trying to keep up with everything on screen and not taking breaks in between as well, because I'm doing all of this commentary in one take, as it's naturally so much more easier to edit this way. Especially since then I can continue to keep my audio sync up with gameplay, because I don't sync gameplay halfway through these playthroughs. It's very hard if I were to record this commentary in multiple takes to sync the audio back up with each individual snippet or segment of the gameplay. But snippet, segment, I suppose either word works. They are the S words coming in clutch. Earlier I was struggling with the A's. It appears I'm having a much better go of the S's. Bad Juju is going to need to pull off Clutch of a Century right here, because her health bar, let's just say, it has seen better days. When it came to her Nightmare run of this level, she didn't get hit by the Doomlander, not even once on Nightmare difficulty. Already she has failed that challenge against the Doomlander. I am speechless. I couldn't even finish my sentence before the swashbuckler needlessly, brutally cut Bad Juju down. That is our first death of the series. That is so wrong on every conceivable level, I would dare go as far to say. Luckily, this is what we have Blastatron for. I just picked the first villain I saw on my desk because I needed to switch out quickly so I didn't waste any more time. But losing Bad Juju there is devastating for the villains, especially since they haven't accessed the Swashbuckler Shrine yet. Chain Reaction survives, so he can access the Swashbuckler Shrine where Bad Juju cannot. This means that the Senseis moving forward can make up for the Imaginite chest deficit that they're currently at when compared to the villains, mind you. We gotta hope that the villains don't have such a rough episode on the next go around. Blastertron defeated what remained of the Swashbuckler's health bar, though, very, very quickly. That was what I call obliteration card. You look up obliteration in the dictionary, and that, my friends, is what you'll see. So if the villains complete yet another set, losing even more time compared to the senseis who are already going through the Imaginite Vault. Man, here's this cutscene, which we are going to skip as fast as possible. And now, luckily, the villains, just like the Sensei, still get that collection star, so they get 2 additional Imaginite chests from those level stars. And even if they were successful in the speedrun timer, it wouldn't have mattered for that final star, given that they lost a life along the way. Rather depressing that. But now the Senseis have concluded already, whereas the villains still need to get through the villain vault. So all of the time that they gained in the previous episodes is now gone. They lost at Creation Clash, they lost a villain. Yeah, needless to say that this episode was pretty rough for the villains. Where else do you think the episode got its name from? You could go as far to say, and once again, the second time I said that was much more better grammatically. My grammar, good. But moving alongside my jokes, or moving away from my jokes, you could go as far to say we have more Imaginite chests, a lot more Imaginite chests. In fact, the villain's going to lose some time here because they have more Imaginite chests to open up when compared to Senseis, because they were successful on that initial grind challenge, or should I say Blastertron was. Blastertron has really proven his mettle this episode, taking down the Swashbuckler very, very quickly, more so than Bad Juju or Chain Reaction could ever dream of. I suppose that's what makes Blastertron the better Sensei, surprising that, but now he's finally opened up this final chest, so he's going to exit out of the villain vault, or the chest vault I should say, and the episode just like that is alas going to come to an end. I cannot in good conscience end off this video without first thanking all of my incredible channel members whose continued support help make these videos possible. Without them, these videos would be near impossible to make, so from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate every last one of them. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, there are plenty of options on screen now to explore, and please consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. On that note, this video is coming to an end, so thank you so much as always for watching. Until the next video arises, peace!